GOP Florida Congressman, gubernatorial candidate, Congressman Byron Donalds. It's great to see you. Thanks for joining us. So what's happening now? What restrictions on ICE would pass the House? We know that DHS funding extends for just 2 weeks. What do you think is going to happen?
ICE restrictions, in my view, are not going to pass the House, not with my vote and not with the vote of a lot of my colleagues. Let's examine the Democrats over the last 5 years, shall we? They put ICE in mothballs, let more than 10 million people into the country. Young girls were raped on a journey to our southern border by the drug cartels. Young girls in the United States were raped and murdered, American citizens. What did the Democrats do? Not a damn thing. Let's also examine what they did. They ignored the Constitution, they lost an election over it, and now when Donald Trump is following through on his duty that the American people gave him when they gave him a political mandate, they want to go and shut down ICE again? These are the same people that wanted to shut down the police. These are the same people that said if the National Guard was deployed in Washington, D.C., it would be chaos. The opposite has occurred. D.C. is actually safe. Murders are at a 40-year low. Talk about our border, it is secured. Donald Trump delivered. But the Democrats would prefer to let illegal criminal aliens run rampant in the United States than secure the nation for the American people.
Yeah, we've been tracking.
Ask me, are there going to be ICE confinements with the House vote? I don't think so. I don't see it, not with my vote and not with a lot of my colleagues here on Capitol Hill.
Okay, we're going to be monitoring this. You know, we've been reporting more than 650,000 criminals cross the border over the last 40 years. Axios is reporting the Democrat Party is fighting amongst themselves because some Democrats do want DHS funding, others don't. You know, we know that Republican Senators Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski now open to Democrat demands to stop roving ICE patrols, only target criminal illegals, establish some form of a code of conduct. Watch the Republicans here on the ICE restrictions. Listen to this.
Well, I've been real careful about talking about specific proposals because it's a moving target. I would not support removing masks. There are people out there who mean these agents harm, and not only them, but their family members. And if they can find out where they live, that's dangerous. In terms of the warrants, I guess my question is going to be, when we get down to negotiating, in what context? In some contexts, you already have to have a warrant. Are you saying in all cases? Does that mean the standards of reasonable suspicion under Terry v. Ohio can be thrown out? I just don't know enough about the details of what kind of warrants they want to require.
Again, ICE officers, Customs and Border Patrol, they are at hair trigger alert because of this activism where you have enforcement, law enforcement cooperating. You know, state and local government cooperating with ICE. You don't have these kind of instances, these tragedies that occurred in Minneapolis.
You know, the thing about masks, Congressman, you know, there is state laws out there that say protesters are not allowed to wear masks in protests or riots. So how about, would Democrats be open to enforcing that? What do you make of this debate?
Liz, I'm not interested in debating with the Democrats. They are foolish. They've been reckless with the security of the American people. They've been reckless with, frankly, the safety and security of these officers and their families, because it is true that these organized protests from the Democratic left were doxing officers. I'm not negotiating with them. I'm not interested. They've not secured the country. They've not done what's right on behalf of the American people. They had a deal 2 weeks ago. They need to follow that deal so we can move forward.
Yeah, we got news coming in from Garrett Tenney. ICE officers will be wearing body cams. One of them did not in one of those ICE-involved shootings. Congressman Byron Donalds, thank you so much. Thank you very much for the update. We appreciate you.